Every NBA season is a roller coaster of emotions full of drama, setbacks, and celebrations. Unfortunately, it's also inevitable that a season of the league will have some tragedy too. By far, the 1920 season was the strangest, most emotionally taxing that the NBA has ever seen for a variety of reasons, but especially because of the various tragedies threaded throughout it. Like every season, a number of former players were lost during its duration. Of course, the most memorable passings included high-profile basketball personalities, Hall of Famers Jerry Sloan and Wes Unseld. But unfortunately, there were many more. Most deaths were the result of age, such as Frank Saul, Landell Anderson, and Wataru Musaka, who all died in their 90s. However, others were well and truly untimely, including Andre Spencer and Cliff Robinson, who both died in their 50s due to heart failure and lymphoma, respectively, and Anthony Grundy, who died at the age of 40 as a result of a domestic incident. And for a relatively short but incredibly unnerving period of time during the season, it looked like yet another NBA legend may have passed too. The 1920 season began in October 2019 before the NBA made the highly unusual decision to suspend the league in March 2020. The decision came shortly after Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19 not long after he joked about the pandemic at a press conference as the virus rapidly spread throughout the world, sending various cities and countries into lockdowns. Soon after, Gobert's teammate Donovan Mitchell tested positive for the virus too, leading to the NBA's decision to shut down the league.
Since the game tonight has been postponed.
Also in March 2020, just hours after the NBA shut down, Charles Barkley called into his show Inside the NBA to reveal that he'd been tested for COVID-19 after falling ill following a recent trip to New York, which was one of the worst hit U.S. cities during the pandemic.
I haven't been feeling great, and they didn't want me to take any chances, so they told me to quarantine myself for 48 hours.
Barkley explained that he'd self-quarantined in Atlanta. He then went deathly silent for days on end, leading many fans to fear the worst. At the time, it typically only took a few days, at most, to get the results of a COVID test. Yet, Barkley never gave an update about his test results. To make matters worse, Barkley's isolation and subsequent silence came just months after the untimely death of fellow Hall of Famer Kobe Bryant, who died in a helicopter crash in January 2020. So, for a while there, it appeared as though the basketball world may have lost two of the game's biggest icons within just weeks of each other. Finally, after 10 days of self-imposed isolation and unnerving silence, Barkley let the world know that he had tested negative and was still alive and as healthy as ever. Almost exactly 4 years later, in January 2024, talk show host Stephen Colbert publicly called out Barkley on his late-night show over his silence during his quarantine. Back in March 2020, just before Barkley put himself into self-imposed isolation, he'd appeared on Colbert's show, during which he shook hands with the host. After Barkley went into quarantine, Colbert feared that he and his family may have contracted COVID from the Hall of Famer, so he called Barkley every day to see if he'd tested positive. But Barkley never called him back. Finally, years after his fateful COVID test, Barkley explained his strange silence. Ultimately, he put the blame on TNT as they had arranged for his quarantine and the test, and it was their medical staff who took so long to get the results.
TNT has the worst medical staff. I had Patrick Ewing calling me, and I had you calling me.
Why didn't you call him back?
Because I didn't know the results. I said, y'all sent me to the worst damn hospital in the history of civilization.
So they told me to quarantine myself